The Confederation medical team works frantically behind the sealed barrier of their ship's decontamination chamber. Through the transparent aluminum viewport, Dr. Elena Reyes watches them administer treatments to the collapsed diplomats. Their movements are precise but hurried, betraying their mounting concern. They are treating this like a contamination event, she murmurs to Dr. Sanjay Kumar, her colleague from the Xenobiology division. But our atmospheric sensors detected nothing unusual. Kumar nods, his eyes never leaving his tablet as data streams in. Because there is nothing unusual for us. The air quality is actually better than average for a New York summer. A ripple of tension moves through the gathered Earth officials as the alien ship's external lights shift from diplomatic blue to emergency crimson. The Secretary General steps forward, her face professionally composed despite the disaster unfolding on what should have been humanity's triumphant entry to galactic society. Dr. Reyes, she says quietly, you've studied their physiology more than anyone. What's happening? Elena hesitates, the weight of the moment pressing down on her. 3 years of studying Confederation biological data, and still she feels woefully unprepared. I think they're reacting to Earth itself. Not a pathogen or toxin, but the fundamental conditions we consider normal. A communications officer approaches with a tablet. The Confederation ship is requesting to speak with Dr. Reyes specifically. The viewport illuminates with the image of Mirisol, the Confederation's senior xenobiologist. Her translucent skin shows visible stress patterns, bioluminescent warning markers pulsing beneath the surface. Dr. Reyes, she begins, her translated voice strained. We require immediate assistance. Our standard medical protocols are proving ineffective. Your atmosphere is. It's degrading their cellular structure. Elena's mind races. The nitrogen-oxygen ratio, the atmospheric pressure. All of it. Mirisol responds. The gravity alone is causing internal stress fractures. The oxygen levels are hyperreactive to their respiratory systems. The trace gases you barely notice are caustic to their membranes. Around Elena, the human delegation exchanges confused glances. These conditions were fundamental to Earth, nothing they could change or control. We need to understand how you survive here. Mirisol continues, her tone shifting from medical professional to something approaching awe. The Confederation classified potential life-bearing worlds into categories centuries ago. Class 1 worlds are paradise planets, stable, mild, resource-rich. Most member species evolved on Class 2 or Class 3 worlds with moderate challenges. A different alien appears in the communication frame. Krelvon, the science minister, his protective suit now fully engaged. We theorized about Class 5 environments, but considered them unsuitable for intelligent life evolution. The pressure would be too great, the selection too harsh. He pauses, multifaceted eyes fixed on Elena. Yet here you stand, not merely surviving, but thriving in conditions that are killing our delegation. Elena feels a chill despite the summer heat. You're saying Earth is a Deathworld, Krelvon confirms. The most extreme planetary classification in our database. And you humans are something we've never encountered before. As the diplomatic corps erupts into urgent conversations around her, Elena catches sight of Captain Marcus Way, the security liaison, standing silently at the perimeter. His expression is unreadable, but she recognizes the calculating assessment in his eyes, the immediate understanding of what this revelation means for humanity's place in the cosmos. They had prepared for first contact with technological superiors. They had braced for cultural differences and communication challenges. No one had prepared for the possibility that humans themselves would be the most alien thing the galaxy had ever seen. Dr. Reyes stands at the edge of Prospect Park, watching the Confederation assessment team take readings. Their environmental suits glisten like liquid metal in the afternoon sun, the material constantly adjusting to filter Earth's harsh conditions. Captain Wee approaches, carrying 2 coffee cups. "They refused the shelter options," he says, handing her a steaming cup. "Apparently our buildings contain too many microorganisms." Elena accepts the coffee gratefully. Can you blame them? The initial team nearly died from exposure. She watches as Krelvon carefully collects a soil sample, handling it as though it might explode. To them, our world is basically radioactive lava. The assessment team's primary scanner emits a series of chirps, causing the aliens to cluster around it. Wei raises an eyebrow. Problem. Opportunity, Elena corrects, recognizing the sound pattern from her xenobiology training. They found something interesting. They approach as Krelvon examines a perfectly ordinary oak tree, his scanning device hovering around its trunk and leaves. The alien scientist notices their arrival and activates his external speaker. Dr. Reyes, Captain Wei, "This organism, you call it a tree, yes? It is performing extraordinary molecular conversion processes." Wei glances at the tree, then back at the alien. "You mean photosynthesis? Is that what you call it?" Krelvon's voice contains a note of wonder. This process would be considered advanced bioengineering on most worlds. Yet here, even your simplest life forms perform molecular manipulation that our scientists struggle to develop. Marisol approaches with her own scanner. The adaptability in your ecosystem is unprecedented. These organisms, she gestures to a cluster of mushrooms near the tree's base, are decomposing complex organic matter using chemical processes that would require laboratory conditions elsewhere. Elena watches their fascination with new eyes. Earth's ordinary biology suddenly seems remarkable through their perspective. "You mentioned gravity earlier," Wei says, deliberately dropping his empty coffee cup. The aliens flinch as it hits the ground. "How much stronger is Earth compared to your worlds?" Krelvon consults his data pad. The average Confederation homeworld maintains approximately 0.6 of your gravitational force. The compounds in your skeletal structure would be considered industrial-grade building materials by our standards. The assessment team moves toward a small pond, their instruments extended cautiously over the water's surface. One of the junior scientists recoils dramatically, their suit flashing warning patterns. "What now?" Wei asks. "Microbiological density readings," Elena explains, looking at the translated data streaming to our tablet. "Our pond water contains millions of organisms per milliliter. To them, it's like a biological weapon." The Confederation team completes their scan of the area, and Krelvon approaches with a formal demeanor. "We finished our preliminary assessment of this region," he announces. "Captain Wei, would you be willing to demonstrate how humans typically interact with this environment? Our understanding would benefit from practical observation." Wei glances at Elena, who nods encouragingly. "Sure," he says with a casual shrug that makes the alien's posture stiffen with anxiety. He walks to the pond, kneels down, and does something that causes the entire alien delegation to emit warning sounds. He dips his bare hand into the water, raises it to his mouth, and drinks. "The filtration capabilities of your internal organs must be extraordinary," Marisol whispers, recording every moment. "You've just willingly introduced thousands of foreign organisms into your body." Wei wipes his mouth, looking faintly amused. "We call it taking a drink. If you think that's impressive, Wait until I tell you about our recreational activities, like swimming or hiking in the rain." The aliens exchange glances that even through their protective gear convey clear horror and fascination. Their world assessment was revealing something unexpected. Not just that Earth was dangerous, but that its inhabitants had evolved to treat that danger as normal. And that made humans themselves the most terrifying discovery of all. The cafeteria falls silent as the aliens' monitoring equipment lets out a series of alarmed beeps. Dr. Reyes pauses mid-bite, her spicy chicken sandwich halfway to her mouth. Across the table, Krelvon adjusts controls on his scanner while Marisol's bioluminescent patterns flash with scientific excitement. "Is there a problem?" Elena asks, slowly lowering her food. "Not a problem," Marisol responds, her translator struggling to convey her tone. "An impossibility. The capsaicin concentration in your food would trigger neurological shutdown in most Confederation species, yet you consume it for pleasure." Captain Wei reaches for the hot sauce bottle and deliberately adds more to his already spice-laden meal. "Some of us enjoy it quite a bit. This one's actually mild by my standards." The alien technician monitoring Wei's readings makes a sound that doesn't translate but clearly communicates distress before stepping away from the table. "Your biochemistry is fascinating," Krelvon says, adjusting his scanner. "The compounds you casually consume would qualify as defensive toxins on most worlds. Your digestive system doesn't just tolerate them, it processes them efficiently." Elena takes another bite, watching the readings spike on their monitors. "We've co-evolved with these plants. What started as their defense mechanisms became flavor preferences for us. Capsaicin, caffeine, theobromine, they are just part of our cuisine now." A junior scientist approaches with new data, displaying a holographic comparison of human cellular structures against Confederation standards. The differences are immediately apparent. Human cells appear dense, reinforced, almost armored compared to the delicate structures of the alien examples. "Your basic cellular resilience exceeds our military-grade biological enhancements," Krelvon notes, zooming in on particular structures. These mitochondrial adaptations alone would be considered breakthrough bioengineering on most worlds. Through the cafeteria windows, they watch a group of children playing soccer in the adjacent park. The aliens observe with the same intensity they'd shown toward the hazardous environment assessments. "Those juveniles," Marisol begins, her voice containing something like concern, "they're falling repeatedly on microorganism-laden soil, experiencing impact forces that would fracture our bones, and exposing themselves to direct solar radiation." Wei follows her gaze. "We call it recess. Kids need exercise." "They're training for survival without realizing it," Krelvon observes. "Constant low-level exposure to your environment's threats builds natural immunity and physical resilience." The ground beneath them trembles slightly. Another minor earthquake, the third since the assessment began. The humans in the cafeteria barely react, continuing their meals and conversations. The alien delegation immediately activates emergency protocols, their suits strengthening as they brace for structural collapse. Elena watches this reaction with growing understanding. "This is why your species developed interstellar travel while we were still figuring out basic rocketry, isn't it? You didn't have to devote so much evolutionary energy to just surviving your environments." Krelvon's translator hesitates before conveying his response. "Precisely. Most Confederation species evolved on worlds with minimal environmental threats. Our evolutionary adaptations focused on neural development and social cooperation rather than pure survival. Meanwhile, Earth was trying to kill us every step of the way. Wei says, his expression thoughtful as he finishes his lunch. Predators, diseases, natural disasters, climate extremes. We had to become tough just to make it past childhood. Mirisol's instruments focus on Wei's muscular structure as he stands. Your physical capabilities are particularly notable, Captain. Your muscle density and reaction time would qualify you for elite special operations in any Confederation military force. Wei shrugs. I'm just an average soldier. You should see our actual athletes. The alien scientists exchange glances that translate across species, a mixture of fascination and unease. They had come to study a primitive world seeking admission to the galactic community. Instead, they were documenting potential apex predators who had no idea of their own capabilities on the galactic scale. We need to update the Confederation Council immediately, Krelvon says quietly to Mirisol. The classification of humans requires significant revision. Dr. Reyes stands before the United Nations Security Council, the weight of her presentation hanging in the air. On the massive screen behind her, classified footage shows Confederation species reacting to the Earth assessment data, delegates from 100 worlds in various states of alarm. As you can see, she concludes, the galactic community is deeply divided on how to respond to us. Our very existence challenges their understanding of evolutionary development. The Secretary of Defense leans forward. You're saying they fear us because we're tough. Not just tough, Elena corrects. Unprecedented. Imagine discovering a primitive tribe on Earth, only to find they can naturally withstand gunfire and breathe underwater. That's how they see us. Captain Wei, seated beside the Joint Chiefs, activates his tablet. We've intercepted diplomatic communications between 17 Confederation factions. 3 primary responses are emerging. He projects a 3-column chart. First, the containment faction. They advocate restricting human movement beyond our solar system, viewing us as an invasive species threat. Second, the research faction. They want extensive study rights, essentially treating us as biological curiosities. Third, the military acquisition faction. They see strategic value in human capabilities. The room falls silent as the implications sink in. Humanity had prepared for first contact with technological superiors, anticipating a position of relative weakness. No one had prepared for being viewed as potentially dangerous. The Vrex Dominion has already made unofficial overtures, Wei continues. They've offered advanced propulsion technology in exchange for human military personnel. Specifically, they want access to our special forces units. Elena steps forward again. What Captain Wei isn't mentioning is that the Vrex are currently engaged in territorial disputes with 2 neighboring systems. They want to use human soldiers as shock troops. The UN Secretary General shakes her head. This shifts the balance of power completely. We expected to enter galactic society as junior partners at best. Instead, we're being courted as mercenaries, the Russian ambassador observes. A fascinating development. Elena's secure tablet chimes with an encrypted message from Mary Sell. She reads it quickly, her expression growing concerned. New development, she announces. 3 mid-tier Confederation species have begun evacuating colonies near our solar system. They're citing biological contamination risk as the official reason, but the actual diplomatic cables mention concerns about human expansion. Wei's eyes narrow. They're preparing containment zones. Or buffer territory, the Chinese representative suggests. A standard practice when uncertain of a new power's intentions. The American president, who has been silent until now, stands. Dr. Reyes, in your professional opinion, What are the chances that the Confederation would consider military action to contain us? Elena hesitates, weighing the scientific data against the political realities. Low in the immediate term, they're still assessing our capabilities. More concerning is the possibility of covert intervention, technological sabotage, biological countermeasures, or attempts to pit human factions against each other. Divide and conquer, Y mutters. Classic approach to a potential threat. The Secretary-General surveys the room. Then we must present a unified response. Whatever opportunities or challenges this revelation creates, humanity needs to act with one voice. As the Council erupts into urgent debate, Elena notices Wei studying the classified footage with unusual intensity. He catches her questioning look. "We're seeing everything through our perspective," he explains quietly. "Strong aliens concerned about primitive but physically superior humans. But what if there's more? The Confederation has existed for thousands of years. They must have encountered other challenging worlds before." Elena considers this. "You think they're not telling us everything?" Wei's expression remains carefully neutral. "I think when someone reacts with this level of alarm, it's rarely just about what they're saying. It's about what they know and aren't saying." Outside the secure facility, news networks worldwide broadcast the first sanitized reports about the Confederation's classification of Earth. No mention of Deathworld or biological superiority, just diplomatic language about unique planetary conditions and specialized evolutionary pathways. But as military installations worldwide quietly raise their alert levels, the truth becomes increasingly clear. Humanity's place in the galaxy would not be what anyone had imagined. Steam rises from volcanic vents as the Confederation observation vessels maintain their cautious orbit above the demonstration site. Through the viewports of the primary diplomatic shuttle, the alien delegation watches with a mixture of scientific fascination and instinctive horror. Elena stands beside Krell Vaughn on the observation platform, monitoring the vitals of the human participants through her tablet. The next demonstration will showcase aquatic adaptation, she explains, gesturing toward the shoreline where a team of free divers prepares. "Your oceans contain multiple hazards," Krell Vaughn notes, his scanner analyzing the water composition. "Pressure differentials, temperature variations, dissolved minerals, and countless microorganisms. How do your people compensate?" Before Elena can answer, the divers enter the water without any apparent protective equipment beyond simple wetsuits. Megasol's bioluminescent patterns pulse with alarm as the team disappears beneath the surface. "They're descending past 30 meters, she reports, watching the tracking data. Without pressure compensation technology or respiratory augmentation." Wei approaches from the communications station. Free divers train their bodies to function with minimal oxygen. The current human record is over 200 meters on a single breath. The aliens exchange what Elena has come to recognize as their expression of scientific disbelief. On the monitoring screens, the divers continue their descent, their body readings showing adaptations that the Confederation considers bioengineered capabilities. Slowed heart rates, redistributed blood flow, adjusted lung capacity. "It's not technology," Elena explains. "It's specialized training that builds on our natural adaptability. Most humans could develop similar capabilities with practice." As the diving demonstration concludes, the next team takes position, firefighters preparing to enter a controlled burn area. They wear protective gear, but by Confederation standards, it appears woefully inadequate for the temperatures they'll endure. These specialists routinely enter environments that exceed the thermal tolerance of most carbon-based life, Wei explains. They train to function in conditions that would cause immediate cellular breakdown in your species. The firefighters move through the blaze with practiced efficiency, their thermal imaging equipment identifying objectives within the inferno. The alien scientists record every movement, every biometric reading, their data streams filling with annotations and comparative analyses. Between demonstrations, Elena notices a pattern in the Confederation observers. Their initial shock is gradually transforming into something more complex. Their fear remains evident, but alongside it grows a reluctant admiration. "You understand what we're seeing differently now, don't you?" she asks Krell Von as they watch desert survival specialists demonstrating water conservation techniques in the volcanic terrain. The alien scientist's environmental suit shifts subtly, its color patterns reflecting internal processes that his translator doesn't convey. "We've been approaching this from the wrong scientific framework," he admits finally. "We saw your physical capabilities as anomalies, evolutionary quirks that allowed survival on a hostile world." "But they're not anomalies," Elena suggests. "No," Krell Von agrees. "They're responses. Your species developed in constant dialogue with environmental threats. Your neural architecture, your cellular structure, your social organizations, all of them evolved under selection pressures that would have eliminated most life forms before they achieved sentience." The final demonstration begins as Captain Wei leads a mixed team of specialists through a multi-environment obstacle course. They transition from underwater challenges to high-temperature zones, from high-gravity simulations to microbial exposure tests. Throughout the course, they demonstrate not just physical endurance, but adaptive problem-solving and teamwork. That's the critical factor, Marisol observes, her instruments focused on the participants' brain activity. It's not just physical adaptation, but cognitive flexibility. Your nervous systems evolved to process threat information and generate novel solutions under extreme pressure. As the demonstration concludes, the Confederation representatives convene in their environmental bubble, their discussion animated beyond their usual measured exchanges. Elena catches fragments translated through her earpiece. Reconsideration required. Expanded classification parameters. Strategic implications. Wei joins her, his expression guarded but satisfied. They're beginning to understand. Understand what? Elena asks. That Earth didn't just make us strong, he replies, watching the aliens. It made us creative, and in a universe of perfect patterns and predictable responses, that might be the most valuable adaptation of all. The holographic star chart rotates slowly above the conference table, ancient symbols and coordinates glowing with ethereal blue light. Dr. Reyes studies the unfamiliar constellations, trying to correlate them with known astronomical data. These records predate Confederation standardized mapping, Krell Von explains. The original cartographers used reference points that have shifted over millennia. Elena traces a particular symbol that repeats throughout the display. This marking appears consistently. What does it signify? Danger. Krell Von answers simply, or perhaps more accurately, crucible, a place where something is tested and transformed through extreme conditions. The hologram shifts to display ancient text in multiple extinct languages. The translation matrix struggles with the archaic dialects, rendering approximations rather than exact meanings. The records speak of worlds where life shouldn't exist, but does, Marisol adds, her attention focused on a particularly dense section of text. Planets where the very act of survival requires constant adaptation. Where intelligence emerges not as a luxury of stable environments, but as a necessary response to persistent threats. Captain Wei studies a sequence showing evolutionary pathways unlike anything in Earth's biological record. Species morphing and adapting at accelerated rates under immense environmental pressure. They called these forge worlds, Krelvon continues. The ancient texts suggest that life developing on such planets follows unique evolutionary trajectories. The constant environmental stress creates species with unusual cognitive approaches and physical capabilities. Elena connects the fragments of information, and Earth matches the description of these forge worlds. In 97 distinct parametric measurements, Krelvon confirms the gravity range, atmospheric composition, tectonic activity, climatic variation, biodiversity profile, all match within the margin of error for a Class 5 environment as described in these ancient records. In a secured section elsewhere on the Confederation vessel, Wei follows Mirisol through a restricted access portal. The scientist's bioluminescent patterns display nervous fluctuations as she grants him entry to the ship's historical archive. What I'm about to show you violates several Confederation protocols, she admits. But after studying your species, I believe you deserve to know. The room contains a timeline display of Earth's history, far more detailed than any human-generated record. Wei recognizes key events in human development, but alongside them are markers indicating extraterrestrial observation and, in some cases, intervention. You've been watching us, he states flatly, examining an entry documenting the Black Death in medieval Europe. Adjacent to it is a notation about pathogenic calibration and adaptive response assessment. Not me personally, Marisol clarifies. The Confederation has maintained observation protocols for potentially significant forge worlds for thousands of years. Wei's eyes narrow as he reaches more recent events, the Cuban Missile Crisis, the climate collapse of 2031, each with attached notes about species resilience metrics and extinction probability calculations. These weren't just observations, he realizes, his voice hardening. These were tests. You manipulated events to see how we'd respond. Marisol's translator struggles to convey her complex emotional state. Not manipulations so much as controlled observations. In some cases, subtle course corrections to prevent premature extinction events. Wei studies the final entry in the timeline, First Contact, labelled as Final Evaluation Phase. You didn't discover Earth by accident, he concludes. This entire diplomatic mission was planned long ago. You were waiting for us to reach a specific developmental threshold. The ancient records provided parameters, Marisol confirms. When a Forge World species achieves certain technological and social benchmarks without self-destruction, they become viable for integration. Integration into what? Wei demands. What aren't you telling us about these ancient records and Forge Worlds? Marisol's luminescence dims to near darkness, her equivalent of a whisper. The records don't just describe worlds like yours, Captain Wei. They explain why such worlds are necessary for the survival of all intelligent life in the galaxy. Back in the conference room, Elena notices an anomaly in the holographic data, a section that appears deliberately obscured, information redacted even from these ancient texts. What's missing from these records? She asks Krelvon. The alien scientist's environmental suit shifts color, indicating internal conflict. The purpose, he finally admits. The reason why Forge Worlds like Earth are so important to the galaxy. That information is restricted to the Confederation's highest echelons. But you know, Elena presses, recognizing his hesitation. I have theories, Krelvon acknowledges, based on fragments and correlations. But if those theories are correct, Dr. Rios, then humanity's emergence isn't just an evolutionary curiosity. What is it then? A cosmic necessity. The Emergency Summit convenes in the hastily converted auditorium of the United Nations. Representatives from Earth's governments sit alongside Confederation delegates, their faces illuminated by the ominous footage playing on the central display. Another star system blinks out. Dr. Rios studies the progression pattern, noting the irregular intervals between extinctions. Unlike a natural phenomenon with predictable physics, this entity, whatever it is, appears to move with purpose. The quantum resonance readings match those from the previous incursion, Krelvon explains, his voice uncharacteristically strained. Our historical records are fragmentary, but they confirm this is the same entity described in the ancient texts. The footage shifts to show Confederation defense platforms engaging the phenomenon, advanced energy weapons, and gravitational disruptors firing into what appears to be a region of distorted space. The weapons either pass through harmlessly or are absorbed, their energy seeming to strengthen the darkness. How many systems have been lost? Asks the Secretary-General. 17 in the past 30 standard days, responds the Confederation's senior representative. The entity accelerates after each absorption. Our predictive models suggest it will reach heavily populated regions within 60 days. Captain Wei studies the tactical displays with growing concern. Your defensive strategy is too predictable, he observes. Each engagement follows the same pattern. Establish a perimeter, deploy energy barriers, attempt ranged attacks from multiple vectors. The Confederation military liaison, a being from a high-gravity world whose environmental suit resembles battle armor, turns toward Wei. Our military doctrine is based on perfect coordination and technological superiority. We've developed these tactics over thousands of years. That's the problem. Wei counters, gesturing to the footage of failed engagements. This entity adapts instantly to patterns. Your perfect coordination becomes perfectly predictable. Dr. Rios moves to the central display, zooming in on the entity's behavior during a particular engagement. Look at this section, she highlights. When the Confederation ships broke formation due to damage, the entity briefly lost cohesion. It wasn't prepared for randomness. The room falls silent as the implications sink in. Krelvon approaches the display, his scientific focus returning. You're suggesting that our technological perfection has become a weakness. I'm suggesting that evolution on stable worlds created predictable responses, Elena explains. But this entity counters patterns. It learns and adapts faster than your tactical systems. While humans, Wei continues, evolved on a chaotic Deathworld where survival required constant adaptation and unpredictability. The Confederation military liaison's translator can't fully convey the complexity of their response, but the meaning becomes clear. You believe humans might have the cognitive approach needed to counter this threat. Elena accesses her research data, projecting comparative brain scans of humans alongside Confederation species. Our neural architecture evolved differently. We developed what you might call creative irrationality, the ability to make cognitive leaps, to break patterns intentionally, to embrace chaos as a strategy rather than a threat. Krelvon's environmental suit shifts through color patterns, indicating deep scientific realization. The Forge World hypothesis from the ancient texts, it wasn't allegorical. Worlds like Earth weren't accidents, but evolutionary crucibles, creating minds capable of unpredictable responses. The darkness in the footage seems to pulse, as if sensing it was being observed. Another system vanishes. We need to rethink our entire approach, Wei states, studying the entity's movement pattern. Not bigger weapons or stronger shields, but unpredictable tactics. Biological inspiration rather than technological perfection. The Confederation's senior representative exchanges glances with the other aliens before making an unprecedented gesture, removing their ceremonial insignia and placing it before the human delegation. Then perhaps, they say, it is fitting that a species forged in chaos might be our best defense against it. As the joint planning begins, Dr. Reyes notices something in the ancient text scrolling alongside the tactical data, a phrase that the translation matrix had struggled with earlier now rendering clearly. When the devourer returns, seek those born of fire and storm, for only the crucible forged can perceive the patterns within chaos. The joint fleet hangs in Earth orbit, a blend of Confederation technology and human inspiration. Traditional symmetrical formations have been abandoned in favor of seemingly chaotic arrangements that follow mathematical principles derived from Earth's natural systems. The spiral of a nautilus shell, the branching patterns of lightning, the seemingly random but ultimately purposeful movements of a hunting wolf pack. On the command deck of the flagship, Dr. Reyes and Krill Vaughn observe Earth rotating slowly below them. The planet's blues and greens appear vivid against the blackness of space, no longer seen as hostile, but as the crucible that forged humanity's unique perspective. For generations, the Confederation pitied primitive worlds, Krill Vaughn admits, his environmental suit now modified with human-inspired redundancies and intentional asymmetries. We never understood that comfort breeds stagnation, while adversity breeds innovation. Elena watches as the fleet prepares for departure. We assumed advanced civilizations would all follow similar paths, that technology and social development had optimal trajectories. A reasonable assumption, Krill Vaughn acknowledges. Until you encounter a species forged in conditions that should have prevented sentience entirely. Across the command deck, Captain Wei and Miri Saul coordinate the implementation of the new defense strategies. The tactical displays show conventional Confederation battle plans overlaid with human-derived adaptations. Introduction of deliberate randomness, biological inspiration, and decision trees that incorporate intuitive leaps alongside logical progressions. Your approach troubles many of our military theorists, Marisol notes as a simulation runs. Deliberate inefficiency as a strategic advantage contradicts thousands of years of doctrine. Why adjusts a parameter, introducing another element of controlled chaos? Perfection is predictable. The entity counters patterns it can recognize. But Earth taught us to thrive in unpredictability. Like introducing random mutations into a defense system, Marisol observes, biological rather than technological thinking. The ship's communications officer approaches with an update. The darkness has consumed another system, but its movement has changed, becoming less direct, almost cautious. It senses something different, Wei notes. It's encountered our advanced scouts and can't predict their movements. A hush falls over the command deck as the main screen displays the fleet's departure trajectory, a course toward the galactic rim where the darkness consumes stars. The joint mission represents an unprecedented partnership. Human unpredictability guided by Confederation coordination and technology. Dr. Reyes joins Wei at the tactical station, her expression thoughtful. It's strange to think that everything we considered normal, our harsh gravity, our extreme climate variations, our regressive biosphere, was actually preparing us for this moment. Earth isn't a death world. Weed agrees, watching the human Confederation teams working in seamless coordination despite their physiological differences. It's a training ground. Krill Vaughn approaches as the departure countdown begins. The ancient texts described this partnership, the crucible forged working alongside those from gentle worlds, different evolutionary paths creating complementary perspectives. The engines engage, and Earth grows smaller in the view screen. For the first time, humans leave their solar system not as explorers or supplicants, but as essential allies bringing unique strengths to the galactic community. We spent our entire history fighting to survive our own planet, Elena observes. We never imagined that struggle was preparing us for something greater. Perhaps that is true of all Forge worlds, Krelvon suggests. The harshness serves a purpose beyond mere evolutionary chance. As the joint fleet makes its first jump toward the darkness consuming the stars, the shocking discovery reverberates through both human and alien consciousness. Earth's status as a Deathworld wasn't a cosmic accident or evolutionary misfortune. It was necessary preparation for a universe where adaptability, resilience, and unpredictable creativity might be the most valuable traits of all. The Crucible had forged humanity exactly as needed, not despite their deadly homeworld, but because of it.